Hey y'all, welcome back to Babeinlibrary. It's your girl Lisa, and today we're going to talk about a TV versus film adaptation of Black Cake. So I decided to read Charmaine Wilkerson's Black Cake because I knew that Hulu was going to do a TV adaptation that has been on my shelf for months on end because this had so much hype last year. In 2022, I believe this won a number of different awards. It was spoken about extremely highly, and I knew that the adaptation means good things from a book standpoint. So I wanted to see what this was about myself, and let me tell you, this is a historical fiction, multi-generational, multi-point of view story that really is down and gritty, and it talks about the things that people go through unbeknownst to others, and how really the biggest thing for me was that you don't know your parents. Your parents had an entire life before they had you. That's pretty much some of the gist of what I got from this. Black Cake starts off as you are going home with Benny, and she is meeting with her brother Byron to listen to the will of their mother, Eleanor. Now, Eleanor absolutely loved and adored her children. She wanted to make sure that she was providing the best life for them. However, Benny has been estranged from both of her parents because Benny came out as queer and she felt like her parents didn't really understand or accept her. Now, Byron has been taking care of his mother this entire time without his sister, and he feels a certain way in terms of his sister leaving, not giving their parents a chance, and him having to care for their mother through her illness and through her dying days. Now, Benny didn't know that her mother was sick, and so she is coming back to her hometown, and both of them are having a little bit of animosity. Now, Eleanor's will is being read off via a recording. She is sharing with them a story of a woman named Covey. And through that, you get to experience the different dimensions of who Covey was, how it relates to the will that they're reading, and what the importance is to Benny and Byron. Now, I will tell you that a couple of things about this book. One, you want to be making sure that you are taking copious notes. There are various different character names. There is various different timelines and storylines to keep up with. There is a lot of changing of who people are in one point of their life versus who they end up being towards the end. And so I had to take a lot of notes. But what I will tell you is that Charmaine Wilkerson is an artist, right? She is beautifully writing and crafting this story and weaves it ups and downs and telling and pulling the threads to make things come together seamlessly and beautifully. I will say this started off a little bit slow. I just wanted to jump right into the action, but I understood that you had to build up so that way you could get a foundation and understanding of who Benny and Byron were, who Eleanor is, get an understanding who Bunny and Covey were, and get to really see how Gibbs played a factor and so on and so forth. So while this may start off slow, I tell you that it builds up, and once it builds up, it takes off like a rocket, and you're just devouring every little morsel and every little piece that you're getting as you go on the way. You get to see the decisions that people make on behalf of themselves, as well as the decisions that they make on behalf of others, and how that plays. Some of the plot twists, actually a lot of the plot twists, I did not see coming. The first drop that we get, and I'm like, okay, I'm rolling with you, Charmaine. And then she would put in a little bit more, and I'm like,
okay, where are we going now?
This has a lot of discussions in here, a lot of culture, a lot of history. This is very rich with context. There is discussion about, food and the origin of it and who gets to claim if it is a dish that centers a sugar cane from the Caribbeans, but it is used on rice that is from Asia, and how people are multidimensional. There is not one thing over another. Everything about a person's experience, a person's livelihood, about how they were raised, who they were raised by, how that all plays a part into who they are. This one, again, is definitely worth the hype. I'm going to watch the TV adaptation. I'm going to come back to let you know what I think. I know that there's going to be a couple of changes based on technology and based on making sure the adaptation stands for 2023 versus maybe how it was presented here, but I'm hoping that I get to really get a feel for the characters and that they portray just as vivid on screen as they did in the book. You all, it is time for my first check-in for the book to film adaptation. What I think I'm going to do is I'm going to discuss episode 1 with you all, and I'm going to give you my thoughts of the initial point of view from a book to TV adaptation, and then I'm going to watch the entire series before discussing my entire wrap-up thoughts after I finish the last episode. So as far as episode 1, I didn't necessarily come in with preconceived notions about what I thought the characters would look like, who they were going to be. When I read a book, I'm not that visual, but what I will tell you is we start off with the prologue as our opening scene, which was very catching, right? We get to see that Coventina is, at her wedding. She is trying to escape in her wedding dress. This is some things you get to see in the preview of the TV show as well. Going through the jungle, trying to escape, getting to the beach, and then it cuts scene. Now, the opening scene of how we get introduced to Benny and Byron is slightly different, which I think is very interesting. The way in which you start into the story, we get Benny's point of view first, which I wasn't necessarily a fan of. I have my own thoughts and feelings towards Benny, and I think that them starting with Byron's point of view instead of Benny actually helped. However, the scene in which they started with Byron's point of view as our introduction to the siblings is my favorite scene of his in the book. Like, I absolutely loved it in the book, but I think that's because over time I built up and understood his character. We fleshed out his monologue to the kids a lot more. And the scene we're talking about is where he is talking to a classroom of students. He's telling them to go and pursue your dreams, no matter if you are the only one. And he's relating it to surfing and how surfing is not necessarily thought of as a Black dominated sport, but how it is done in the Caribbeans and how there is a place for you no matter what society tells you, which again is a heavy, beautiful scene and monologue that he does in the book. I think it may have been a little bit of a disservice to kick it off in the TV show, but I'm still glad that they kept the scene nonetheless. So that is how we're introduced to the siblings. One of the biggest things that I pick up with the TV show and how it's different from the book is in the TV show, there is no guessing game. They directly tell you a lot of the information. It is kind of spoon-fed where it's less of a mystery and less of you trying to piece it together. The TV show flat out gives you all of the details that you need to know up front. And I wasn't sure if it was me knowing, because I already know how the book goes, of me knowing that was the case in the TV show. But no, I don't think it is. They tell you directly, like one of the major plot twists of how Covey relates to the story of what Eleanor is telling her children. It's flat out told to you. And I'm looking like, hey, director, producer, that's not how that's supposed to go. So I'm trying not to do that, and I'm trying to go with the flow as I'm watching the TV show. But I think that may be a little bit of a disservice to the viewers if they haven't read the book. They're getting all of the juicy bits and all of the plot twists right up front. It is interesting to see how they decide to do it. I'm trying to have an open mind because, again, I think the TV show is going to be so vivid. It is going to be Charmaine's, work beautifully adapted. I am so interested to see how things are coming together because we already get to see someone who is a mystery in the book. We already get a quick glimpse of them in what we saw as a flashback. I'm trying not to have any spoilers, so I'm going to do my best to kind of give you more as I watch the TV show without giving you too much, but I'm very intrigued. Like I said, watching it and seeing it and having it tie in so closely to the book, with a recency has been a great thing for me. So I'm going to watch a little bit more, come back to you with my final thoughts, and tell you if I think Hulu did a good job. So talk to you soon. have finished Hulu's version of Black Cake, and phenomenal. Hulu, you did it right. Actually, you gave the book a run for its money. I will say that there's great things about the book and there's great things about the TV show. They did it fantastic in terms of the important pieces of the book was still captured in the TV show. I have an entire list of information on my phone, so I'm going to have to run through my notes. First thing I'll say is that there were so many gaps that were filled in the TV show that couldn't be done in a book, right? Seeing a TV show, you have to be able to walk through with the characters and fill in the gaps because of the imagination is lacking. Whereas in the book, Charmaine kind of jumped from place to place in the storyline, and we just went with it because what other choice did we have? Specifically, one of the major plot points in terms of what happened when Covey went to work in Scotland, right? Like, so I feel that was kind of rushed in the book for good reason, obviously. I don't want to read pages and pages and pages of trauma. However, being able to see how she interacted with the girls in the office, what her relationship was to her manager, and then what transpired in order for her to be taken advantage of, that came through vividly on screen to kind of connect the dots and show the importance of what would be to come later in the book or in the story, actually on the TV show. So I will tell you that was exceptionally done in the show, whereas in this storyline, it was a little bit choppy, but we rolled with it. I'll say another thing that was done really well in the TV show that could have been done better in the book was the way in which they introduced Ada Pringle's character. I could not, for the life of me, I connected the dots because obviously we were told, but we got more of Ada Pringle in the book, and I felt like that was unnecessary. It was doing a disservice where in the TV show, it didn't come up until the last episode, and that is really when everything kind of culminated together, and Ada was able to walk us through that storyline and how it relates to the entire big mystery. I preferred how it was done in the TV show because, again, with the switching of character names, switching of character personas, it got really confusing for me in the book. Again, I understood it, but it wasn't as plain as it was in the TV show. I think there's some good points to reading the book first and then watching the TV show. I will tell you, reading the book, while you believe that you know everything, Hulu added some stuff that I was like, no, wait a minute. I don't recall specifically the two situations that I'm thinking of was when Byron went over to Steve's house. That did not happen in the book. I reviewed my notes and I was like, that didn't happen. But it damn near gave me a heart attack watching it on TV because I was like, you mean to tell me that this is going to, like, by episode 5, I was like, Hulu has taken the reins. They said, thank you, Charmaine. We've got it from here. Let's go ahead and do what we want. I thought it was going to go off the rails. I had heart palpitation, and I'm so glad that I decided to continue watching the show because the creative nature of whoever was doing that particular scene and writing it, putting so much more context, which also led to the panel conversation, which is what we all needed to hear. Those people's faces were shock to stun and unbelief. Like, it was great being able to see Byron like come into his own and have his discussion on how he felt like he'd been mistreated and then how he utilized that with, I keep forgetting the lawyer's name, but that again wasn't in the book. So creative licensing for Hulu, top tier, takes off your hat because they took what was already a really good book and made it a masterpiece of an adaptation. Another thing that I thought was really good about the TV show is in the story, Benny's character grated my nerves, but in the book, she wasn't, she was portrayed a lot differently, right? I never would have thought about the connection about how much Benny would have struggled looking back in terms of her parents' life and what she started to learn and how her mother could accept her best friend but couldn't accept her. When she said that, I was like, girl, go off. Like, all right, Benny, I'm gonna stand behind you. Like, I get it now. Like, in the book, she was kind of portrayed in terms of being, self-centered, not understanding or not forgiving. But she wind up in the TV show, she come behind, Byron and be like, hey, Byron, let's give our parents grace. If they could do it, my mom really wouldn't want it to be like this. I really loved how they portrayed her in the TV show. Whew. Lynette in the TV show, we didn't get nearly enough Lynette time in the book, but when she told Byron, your daddy was a civil rights activist and you can't even stand up for yourself at the job. Cut! She did it. She said that the whole thing that we were all thinking, and Lynette is a trooper. Let's talk about how I read this book. Read this book, knew everything that was going to happen, and I still cried in the TV show. Not once, but multiple times. I knew all of the plot twists. I knew all of the factors, and yet Hulu found a way. When they went to her casket before she was being incinerated, bawling. I was crying, screaming, throwing a fit. The conversation between Lynette and Byron at the funeral home, jaw was on the floor. Hulu, you did a fantastic job. I could go on and on and on. I will tell you again, there is a lot of value in reading the book because, as I stated earlier, you get to go through this and discover the mysteries of yourself. One thing and the beauty of an imagination while reading the book is that Charmaine doesn't hand you everything. She makes you work to understand the plot twist and understand what's going on. Whereas in the Hulu adaptation, the producers and directors were like, let's just give them the information and let them roll with it. So reading the book, you get to really think through things yourself, see how the connections of the dots are being placed and what the trail is. And ultimately, you can make the decision on who you think dealt with Little Man, how you think Eleanor, Covey, Gibbs, Bert, how everyone is related and how that plays with Byron and Benny. Whereas in the story, it's directly told to you. So again, read the book, but definitely go watch the adaptations. Shout out to Hulu. Until next time, I'll talk to you all later. And do me a favor, leave me a cake emoji and I'll see you all. Bye.